There are some major new flashing red lights about the economy. First, a warning today from Australia's trade minister that Trump's tariffs could raise the price of your McDonald's hamburger. According to new analysis by the Federal Reserve, more Americans with college degrees are working multiple jobs. And a new report says the hottest item being smuggled into the U.S. right now is eggs. The rate has more than doubled, with the San Diego CBP field office alone reporting a 158% jump. All of it evidence of why our new NBC News poll shows President Trump staring down a political reality he's never faced before. A majority of voters do not approve of the president's handling of the economy, inflation, and the cost of living. Joining us now, Tim Miller, host of the Bulwark podcast and an MSNBC political analyst. Jason Furman is Harvard Kennedy School professor and former chair of the Council of Economic Advisors during the Obama administration. Tim, this is a first for Trump. He's never had numbers this bad. But do you think it could prompt a change of course, or at least up the pressure Trump feels from members of Congress?
I don't think so in the short term, Chris, and here's why. Because there are two other stats in that poll that really jumped out to me. Number one, he has almost unanimous support among Republican voters for his strategies, both economically and otherwise, in these first 2 months, despite all of the disruptions. So he hasn't, lost ground with his base. For example, thinking back to like 2006-07, when George W. Bush's numbers started to go down, he was losing altitude among Republicans, Democrats, and independents, with the Iraq War and then after Katrina. Like, we're not seeing that yet for Trump. So that's number one. As long as Republicans are with him, he'll probably stay the course. Number two, there's this weird dichotomy in his numbers recently, where for a long time Trump was personally unpopular, but people trusted him on the economy because of his apprentice, acting role, I guess. But we've seen now this inverse, where Trump's ratings are about as good as they've ever been. I mean, they're still pretty low for presidents, frankly, but they're about as good as they've ever been, while his economic numbers are the lowest they've ever been. So to me, I think that does signal that there's warning signs to come if the economy continues to worsen, and Jason can talk about that a bit. But until then, and until we see some drop in his numbers among Republican voters, I think he's going to stay the course.
Let's do that reality check, Jason. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, told Kristen Welker on Meet the Press that he's not concerned about how the stock market, for example, has been reacting to all this economic uncertainty. And I want to play that.
I'm not worried about the markets. Over the long term, if we put good tax policy in place, deregulation, and energy security, the markets will do great.
Yeah, Trump has just said to be patient, but will, I think, as the Washington Post asks, investors, business leaders, and consumers be willing to wait? I mean, the next big political test isn't until next November. Could these policies, from tariffs to the gutting of the federal government, still work, Jason?
Yeah, normally I would say the Treasury Secretary would be exactly right to say ignore day-to-day movements in the market. Let's focus on the long term of the economy. But right here, the reason the market is screaming out in pain is because of the policies that this administration is advancing, and because they've said they're going to keep advancing them no matter what shows up in markets, no matter what shows up in public opinion polls. And so it's a real cry for help coming from the markets, and something that they ignore at their peril. We've seen consumer confidence deteriorate, uncertainty at nearly the highest levels ever. The tariffs are raising costs. They're hurting exports. All of this is really, not a good combination of economic policies.
It's interesting what you said before, Tim, about how Republicans are sticking with Donald Trump, because there's this new analysis by the New York Times that found at least trade war retaliation will hit Trump voters the hardest. It says the countermeasures are aimed at industries that employ roughly 7.75 million people across the U.S., and the bulk of those, about 4.5 million, are in counties that voted for Trump in the last election. I mean, Trump has acknowledged there's going to be a little bit of pain, but if it comes down to losing your job, price of eggs, Big Macs, whether even one job will support you, you do wonder what the pain threshold is.
You do. And I think adding on top of that, if they go through in the Medicaid cuts that they're planning for later in this year with the reconciliation bill, that's going to disproportionately hurt red states, too. Here's the thing. In the first Trump term, he spent a ton of money bailing out the farmers that were hurt by tariffs under the auspices, I think, largely that they were, MAGA voters, his own voters in red states. So we might see some of that again this time, where if there's groups that are hit hard by the tariffs and they're in Trump-friendly communities that they get bailouts. You might see that. And, look, I think, like I said, right now, his numbers are still very stable. We're still within the first 100 days. I know it feels like it's been 1,000 days that he's been back in there, but we're still at the very beginning. And so I think that really this is a question less of like the politics and of the reality for these voters. And if there are, these red communities get hit hard by tariffs or by other ancillary impacts from an economic downturn, then I do think that you will eventually see softening of support. I just don't, we're not really there yet.
Well, let's talk about the markets, particularly, Jason, because there's new analysis in the Wall Street Journal that says the days of set and forget investing just ended for many Americans. It leads them to question the assumption they should just buy stocks, hold them on autopilot. I know we focus a lot on the present, but people do look forward. They look at their 401ks. Half of America has them. And then there are 80 million Americans who are over 60. I mean, retirement's here if it's not coming very soon. How serious do you see the threat to retirement? Because if you're around people who are either retired or coming up on retirement age, I don't want to say it's all they talk about, but it's a lot of what they're talking about right now, and whether what they thought they could depend on is real.
Yeah, look, the thing that retirees and people planning their retirement should understand is that the professionals in the market are just much, much smarter than them. They are much, much more on top of this than I am, too. It's really hard to beat the market. It's really hard to time the market. So I really would recommend that people buy and hold. The stock market is already pricing in some additional tariffs. They are assuming more tariffs are coming. If there's even more tariffs than they're expecting, the market will go down. If President Trump listens to the voters, listens to the, what consumers and workers are saying, and drops some of these tariffs, then the market will actually go up in relief that he's dropping this. But I think for ordinary Americans, this wasn't a great last week. A little bit of a rebound today and on Friday. Wasn't a great last week, but I would still buy and hold. That's certainly what I'm doing personally.
Jason Furman, thank you. Although I would say that for a lot of people wasn't a great last week is an understatement, but okay, you're right. It is coming back. Tim Miller, you're going to stick with us. Thank you both.